From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Jonathan Smith reporting. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed into law a sanctions bill that he says is significantly flawed with clearly unconstitutional provisions. The bill penalizes Russia for its interference in last year's elections. It also penalizes Iran and North Korea, and it restricts the president's authority to lift the sanctions without consulting Congress. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi called on Republicans who control the majority on Capitol Hill to refuse to permit the Trump White House to wriggle out of its duty to impose these sanctions for Russia's brazen assault on our democracy. President Trump and two Republican senators announced on Wednesday a proposed new law to reduce legal immigration. At the White House, the president said the United States has for decades let too many low-skilled immigrants into the country. He said the bill would create a points-based system that officials will use when considering applications to live and work in the United States. The president said the legislation is meant to protect minority workers competing for jobs against new arrivals and will give those workers a raise by reducing the number of unskilled workers entering the United States. The Pentagon confirms that 2 American soldiers were killed when their NATO convoy was attacked in Afghanistan's troubled Kandahar province on Wednesday. The Taliban claims one of its suicide bombers drove an explosives-packed vehicle into the convoy. Kandahar is known as the birthplace of the Taliban. You're listening to news from the Voice of America in Washington. President Trump's White House is under new management this week. VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone reports from Washington.
After a chaotic few weeks, President Trump has turned to former General John Kelly to get his White House back on track.
We're going to work hard, and we're going to make America great again. It's all about making America great again. That's what we're going to do.
Kelly replaces Reince Priebus, who clashed with the president's communications chief, Anthony Scaramucci.
I love the president.
Scaramucci was fired Monday, Kelly's first day on the job, a signal that he's serious about ending months of White House infighting. Author Chris Whipple has written a book on the important role of the White House Chief of Staff.
You can't run the White House the way you run a family Manhattan real estate firm with a whole bunch of advisors coming and going and no chain of command and nobody empowered to carry out your agenda.
Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
An electronic voting technology company that tracked the vote in Sunday's Venezuelan elections to overhaul the country's constitution says the results were, quote, manipulated. The company would not say if the tampering changed the outcome of the election. Venezuela's election chief is denying the report that the count numbers were manipulated and inflated by at least a 1 million number for this week's controversial election. The head of the National Election Council said the claim was irresponsible, and she threatened to begin legal action against the company. Witnesses and military officials in South Sudan said at least 6 people were killed in an attack Wednesday on a bus convoy traveling between Juba, the capital, and Nimule on the country's southern border with Uganda. 4 civilians and 2 National Security Service members escorting the convoy were killed. More than 100 buses carrying thousands of Syrian militants and their families left Lebanon Wednesday, completing a ceasefire deal between the Syrians and the Lebanese Shiite militia group Hezbollah. The Dow Jones Industrial Average set a 6th straight record Wednesday, closing above 22,000 for the first time. The Dow is up 11% so far this year, and all of Wall Street has been in what is known as a bull market for several years. And new U.S. public opinion surveys show that President Trump's approval ratings, already the lowest ever for an American president early in his White House tenure, are continuing to fall. Quinnipiac University said Wednesday that by a 61 to 33% margin, Americans disapprove of the president's performance 6 months into his 4-year term in the White House. There's more on these and other late-breaking and developing stories from around the world around the clock at voanews.com.
That's the latest world news from VOA.